Now I'm going to take you 20 years into the future and have a look at what that's going to do to your water supply system. And I'm basing my work on growth predictions of 1%. And those are incorporated into, or 1% comes out of work that was previously done on some of the planning work that was done for you. It was also the prediction rate that was done back in when we looked at the emergency water supply plan in 2011. And I think it's realistic as an average over the 20 years. I mean, I've seen communities that have gone in with 5%. It's ridiculous because you might have 5% one year and then it'll go to 0. So I think 1 is a good number. We picked 20 years. Most OCPs are for a 20-year planning horizon, and most borrowing bylaws are for 20 or 25 years. So you want to tie your financial plan, obviously, to your OCP plan. So that's why we picked the 20 years. And I did make the assumption that you're going to conserve 20% of your water, of your MDD, in the next 5 years. It's not going to happen overnight, and so I wanted to kind of slide it in over 5, which is probably a realistic time frame. So what does that look like? Well, first of all, it looks poor Ken to turn the machine off. There we go. So this is what the dynamics look like. You can see the growth is going up at 1%. So at the end of 20 years, your water demand will go up by about 22%. It's exponential. Just like all those 10 and 15% growth rates you're getting in your RRSPs these days. It's exponential growth. The water conservation is drawing you down by 20%, so you've got one going up and one going down. So when you throw these together, this is what it looks like. You're running at about 150 liters per second right now, MDD. If I take the 13,000 cubic meters per day, which is your MDD, convert it to liters per second, it comes out to about 150. So as your water conservation program kicks in over that 5-year period, it's going to drop down to about 126 liters per second. And then it's going to start climbing back up again because the growth is now driving your demand. And at the end of 20 years, you're pretty much where you are today. Does all that make sense? Confused everybody? So we looked at 2 options to address your water demands for the 20-year planning horizon. The first one was to increase your elevated storage. Let's put up a bigger reservoir. You're going to need a new well anyway to meet your current demand, so we're going to bump it up to 54 liters a second, which is going to be which is going to bring you up to the 147 liters a second confirmed supply that you're going to need in 20 years. So with a new well and 500 cubic meters of storage, the cost is about $1.2 million. That's option 1. Option 2 is to put in 2 new wells and just use your existing storage. I want you to think about the aquifer under the ground as storage. It's sitting there for your use for fire. It just isn't sitting at an elevated height like you have over here on the east side or Valley Heights. So really all you're doing with the additional well is you're pulling that storage out of the ground when you need it with a pump. The water's still there. The good part about it is when it's in the ground, you don't have to worry about it going stale. There's nothing to maintain down there. And at the end of the day, it's probably a better option, even though it's a little bit more expensive. It's $1.4 million. But this doesn't include the cost of an environmental assessment. And what happens is if you put in a well or you draw more than 75 liters a second out of the ground over and above what you're currently drawing, the ministry will require you to do an environmental assessment. And it costs about $200,000 just to get the assessment done. We're doing one right now for the city of Fernie. It's horrendously expensive, and it's very time consuming. So the downside of this one is with putting 2 new wells in 54 liters a second, you could potentially trigger an environmental assessment. But I'm going to show you later that we may be able to avoid that.